It's WST Sunday Live, hosted by Hrabchak, Lyss Houde, and Jacob Stoller.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome into another edition of WST Sunday Live. My name is Hrabchak. Today, of course, as always, I'm joined by my two awesome co-hosts, Lyss Houde and Jacob Stoller. And good to see everyone here on a Sunday morning in chat, coming off of a huge Jets win on Friday night, 4-1 over the Dallas Stars, probably the biggest win of the season. We're going to break it all down, small picture, big picture. We're going to get into our burning questions, trending up, trending down. So we've got a great show today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Al Broderick from Long Beach, California. Very nice. Love to see that. Lyss and Jacob, how are you guys doing this morning?
Oh, I'm doing well. I am super stoked to talk about that game. It was a lot of fun on Friday, and I think we're getting to my favorite time of the year, hockey or non-hockey related. I love the spring for the NHL playoffs. It is so much fun, and I just can't wait. The wild card battles are so fun in both conferences right now. So lucky to be here. So much good hockey going on. So many meaningful games. So I'm having a blast.
Jacob, how are you doing? How's your weekend going?
Doing good. Weekend's great. That was an awesome game. I think probably the best crowd we've seen all year, I might say.
Yeah.
The most engaged. Obviously Friday and Saturday it's usually a sellout, but this one seemed a bit extra special. So that was really fun to see. And yeah, Seattle will be good tonight as well. But yeah, I'm not waking up till the regular season ends, but I am sort of not as interested. But Friday night was a game that I was all into and thought it was really, really important.
So I want to start the conversation about Friday with the atmosphere. And I'll start it with this, okay? In the 2 years I've covered the Winnipeg Jets, there's been two games that I haven't been able to sleep after. One was game one of the playoffs last year when the Jets won 7-6. That one was tough to get to bed after. And
because you got a parking ticket?
Yes, because I got a parking ticket. I was just lost. But no, the second one was Friday night. Maybe it's because I had a flight the very next morning very early. So maybe that was adding to the stress. But that crowd was so energetic. They knew the stakes of the game. The Go Jets Go chants were starting right out of the intros. The first 5-10 minutes were so tense. Everyone was into it. Brandon Tanev just barely missed on the breakaway. The roof would have blown off that place. And then Dylan Samberg scores maybe the loudest crowd pop of the year for an opening goal for the Jets. That crowd was absolutely incredible. And if you were in the building Friday night, kudos to you, because that was truly awesome to just, sit up there in the press box and be a part of. All three of us were up there in the press box. Lyss, what did you think of the atmosphere in the building?
Well, I think my favorite part was exactly what you said. The whole concept of I think they had to delay the land acknowledgement just a little bit more than they were going to, because the lights go down loud. And the Go Jets Go was so loud. It was so, I love organic crowd energy, and that's exactly what we saw in a lot of those moments. And yeah, not to piggyback off of everything you said, but the cheer for Brandon Tanev, not just after the breakaway, but then after he made a big back check after that breakaway, you would have thought in a lot of NHL ranks that there was a goal scored in that particular moment. There was cheering across the board. So it was a lot of fun. And I think Winnipeg Jets fans who attend hockey games at the Canada Life Center, maybe I'm biased, but I tend to think probably, quote unquote, know a bit more about hockey than maybe in some other rinks. You have a lot of folks who are there who know what to cheer for and what's exciting in a game outside of just the regular, goals, fights, and all those big things that you might see in other places. So it was, it's always fun to hear them get really engaged about different parts of the game.
For sure. And yeah, I wrote it, I tweeted it, I said it a million times. It was a true playoff atmosphere. Running Man said it here, reminded me of the playoffs, loudest crowd of the year. The whiteout is so much that's such a, I know, right? It's such a higher level, but in terms of other rinks, you're saying, Lyss, I think that would be a playoff atmosphere in other rinks, but that's just a regular season Friday night atmosphere in Winnipeg. That is, and Mike had a tweet that I thought was great too. Basically saying, all the 31 other teams and a lot of players have Winnipeg on their no trade list. He would invite them to come watch a game at Canada Life Center in an atmosphere like that. Because that's something you can't really replicate in a regular season atmosphere. And I don't think we're being overly dramatic with how we're describing this either. Like that was legit. That was a playoff atmosphere in every other market except for Winnipeg, because Winnipeg in the playoffs, it goes even higher and it gets even more so crazy. So anything else that you guys want to say on the crowd, the atmosphere, before we dive into the actual nitty gritty details of the Friday night game?
I mean, it's so funny to, maybe this sort of is a bit of a transition comment, but it's hilarious. The two players that you would have seen on at Winnipeg Jets post-game media after the game on Friday were Kyle Connor and Morgan Barron, who both had very, very different responses to the atmosphere and the energy that I think both provided a lot of value. And I think both perspectives were really, really important. Kyle Connor was like, okay. He's like, we've won March hockey games at this crowd before and played good hockey. He's like, I am not super pressed about that. Like, we got a lot of focusing in to kind of work on for the next little bit. We need to make sure we're playing our best hockey down the stretch going into the playoffs. Last year, our season series against Colorado, we won, and look what happened there, kind of thing. Like, very, very tempered on that. And then Morgan Barron, mentioned, and so did Scott Arniel, that it's like, yeah, we heard that. We felt that it was a little bit different there. And I think that's a good balance to know as a fan that, what you're providing and the energy in the crowd is being noticed and acknowledged and firing up your team. That's awesome. But also that this team is not just completely getting wrapped up in the emotions of like, oh, wow, this is so awesome. And then they're still kind of focusing in. So I thought it was really nice to have both perspectives from those guys.
For sure. I agree, because a lot of NHL players do have the mindset of Kyle Connor, where it's like, I am focused on this game. I know we're playing Dallas and I know it's maybe a bigger game, but like, I am not. I'm now on to Sunday against Seattle. Like, they just have such a tunnel vision. But Morgan Barron was like, yeah, I mean, I think we all know what the standings are. Someone in chat said it was an intelligent crowd. Everyone knew in the crowd that this was a big game, that this, Central Division would have been 6 points or 10 points, and it ended up being 10 with the Jets picking up the win. And Jacob, the biggest reason for the win, or at least I would say, maybe you can disagree with me.
Can I say one more thing about what Lyss said?
No.
I think also too, it's important. So you're saying no? Okay, I didn't hear that. Yes, but I think it's important to note as well that like when players are talking to the media, they're always doing it under the guise of like, okay, how will this come off? Like, obviously too. So like, let's also keep in mind that like Kyle Connor, having been here for 7-8 years or whatever, like I think he knows by now that he's not going to go out and say, huge game, this is a really big moment for us, because he's been here and I love what he said about how last year they swept Colorado and beat Dallas a lot of times in the regular season, they swept Colorado in the regular season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then they got pumped in the playoffs. Like it's a different animal. So the reason that's important is, yeah, this is a good win, 2 points, and like good in the division standings, but like let's not draw crazy conclusions from this. And I don't think you should. If you're in that room, obviously, we can discuss that. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I completely agree, and I just think though that it is nice, like, to have the little comment of the Morgan Barron for, because if you're a fan who's cheering your heart out in that rink, and then all of a sudden, you just hear game in, game out that the players are like, we don't care, it doesn't matter to us, it's irrelevant, like whatever. I think it's a nice kind of like nugget that you can be like, yes, like we are part of this, because Jets fans are part of this. There's 100% the truth there.
Absolutely. And just on the note of Kyle Connor, Jacob, I'll start this conversation with you. We'll actually get into the game, into the win. That top line played maybe their best game of the season. They had 3 goals at 5-on-5. Kyle Connor had 2 of them. They outshot their opponents at 5-on-5, outchanced them, expected goals. All the underlying numbers were there. All the goals were there. Was that the biggest reason for the win on Friday night, in your opinion, Jacob, the top line and their play at 5-on-5?
Well, yeah, obviously, I think that was a huge part of it. Like Scheifele and Connor were amazing. Like that was a great example of the Jets' best players showing up at the best moments. I think the reason the Jets won that game, though, sounds cliche, but I'll do my best to break it down. The structure. They gave Dallas nothing, like inside, and it was annoying to play against. There was 2 sequences that really like epitomize, I think, the Jets' identity, and it's not Tanev getting a puck to the face, which Barron says epitomizes that. That was
so funny.
nuts.
Look wild.
But yeah, Luke Schenn throwing down Mikko Rantanen in front of the net, just absolutely annihilating him. And then there's another sequence. He did it again. And it's like, okay, like that's sort of what the Jets have been trying to build towards all year, that hard to play against. And they've had it well with their positioning, the way that they're able to be a good 5-man unit. They break out as a team. They're able to suffocate you and take away lanes. But I think that little extra jam with Schenn and Tanev as well, like they played what Arniel calls Winnipeg Jet hockey. Like the Stars are like the 5th best expected goals for team in the entire league. And I think they held them to a number 1.7 or something, I believe. That would boom.
1.87. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, you're spot on.
Low.
You're spot on.
Wait, but that's all situations, right?
Yep. Yeah.
No, so I'm talking about 5-on-5.
But even with the one power play, like holding them under 2 expected goals is pretty impressive.
Oh, absolutely. No, for sure.
Yeah, you're just saying that at 5-on-5 is probably like 1.65 or something like that.
That's my only
cooked. Yeah.
For sure.
See, that's crazy. And like that was a game where they didn't have the power play. Like they didn't have that extra goal there. So I was extremely impressed by the way that they were able to will their style of play over Dallas's.
Yep. Lyss, what did you think was, one of the biggest reasons for the Jets winning, maybe that Jacob didn't touch on?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is super important to kind of go off of. And I think it's funny. I would venture to say, and I would have to watch that game again to say it with more confidence, but I feel like if you're in a game where Nikolai Ehlers looks a little bit odd, I think that usually means your team is playing a really good structured game, because I think Nikolai Ehlers is a guy who can take over games where the team is maybe falling apart a little bit or the team is kind of chaotic or whatever, and he can embrace that chaos and just bring all of his tools to the table and look like a ton of fun. When he looks a little bit, you kind of single out there and you're like, what's that guy up to? It's because everyone else is kind of, I feel like, playing that super strong structured game. And so, Jacob, I think you're 100% correct. And I think it was really nice to see, because when we talk about that, they totally did will their game over Dallas's. And I think what's probably super annoying for Dallas is that what their game looks like is pretty consistent within each line, but lines compared to other lines are very different. What the Adam Lowry line goes out there and does, they know what they want to do. Those guys spend like all their time below the goal line and they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff in the ozone. And then all of a sudden the next shift over the boards comes the Connor Scheifele-Velarde line. And now you have this weird perimeter passing and you're like, where's this puck going to go? And you're like, oh my gosh, I missed that guy. And they're putting those pucks on net. Mark Scheifele gets 2 grade A backhand chances kind of sliding through the middle across on Jay Gottinger there, that if you're the Dallas defense, you're like, how did we let that happen twice, right? Like they play similar hockey within their own right, but then compared to one another, there's some differences that really elevate the skill sets of the players, which I think is so hard to play against. And that's the best type of hockey that you can play, right? Is that every guy is able to kind of showcase what he's able to do and put the foot down against a team like Dallas that needed that win and is playing great hockey right now and is a great hockey team.
100%. And you guys both, or Jacob brought up Luke Schenn, and I want to have a discussion about him now because he made his debut this week on Tuesday, and then Friday up against the Dallas Stars. I believe he had 5 hits in the game Tuesday night against the Rangers and then 7 against the Stars. And Neil Pionk is week to week. If you missed that news earlier in the week, that came out Friday morning, the day of the Dallas game. So Luke Schenn slid up to the second pair alongside Dylan Samberg, which Dylan Samberg, we'll get into him in a second because I thought he had such an incredible game. But Luke Schenn, what are your guys' initial impression? I think I'm very impressed, at least through 2 games, and I'm open to hearing your guys' opinion on him through the Rangers and Stars games. Lyss, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think he definitely is providing what I was hoping he would provide for this group. There have definitely been some moments of, I think especially when players get traded to Winnipeg, I feel like the fans often fall into the camp of, wow, perfect fit, or, oh my gosh, this guy stinks, right? And I think it's very important to kind of acknowledge that, I think he's been really, really good, but every now and then some of specifically the breakout passes a little bit on kind of his wall there on the right side. I was like, okay, like I see why this is a guy that people had some red flags about when the Jets traded for him, whatever. That said, I think that with him in the lineup right now, depending on kind of where they move around some other guys, it's probably the best configuration of the Winnipeg Jets defense going into the playoffs that this team has iced all year. I really like the fit. And the whole concept of addition by subtraction, I'm not going to fill in the blanks here. I'm not going to finish my sentence because I think people know where I'm going. I think that the idea of having Hayden Fleury out there or something like that is probably not a bad idea. I think that the Samberg Schenn pairing has the potential to be a pairing that you trot out at 5-on-5, maybe 6-on-5 when, you know, you're protecting a lead or something like that. I think that that pairing has a lot of potential to really, really manage their own net front and, you know, play some in-zone defense. We saw a 2-minute sample of what Dylan Samberg can do protecting his own goaltender in a high-pressure, high-stakes situation with a lot of offense coming at you just on Friday. And we know he's exceptional at that. Luke Schenn is good at that as well. And if he is working on more clearing the puck as opposed to trying to create a breakout out of it, like I think that that's a money pairing right there. So I've been really pleased with him so far. And I think that, you know, no, this is not a guy that's like, oh, perfect, great, set him up there to play 25 minutes a night with Josh Morrissey. No, but I think that for what he was brought in to do, he's done a good job so far, and all signs are pointing to him continuing to have a really positive impact in that way.
For sure. Jacob, what have you thought in the first 2 games with Schenn?
Yeah, I like what Lyss said about the 6-on-5 example of like a sequence where Schenn could kind of come in and bring something else. I don't think he, like, at the end of the game, Connor asked Arneal about it with, you know, Luke Schenn playing with Josh Morrissey at some points. They had a mixed bag of different pairings and whatnot. And Arneal alluded to them just trying different things at that point. And I don't think that Schenn and Morrissey makes a lot of sense practically in terms of A, Luke Schenn playing 25 minutes a night, and B, Luke Schenn playing against the other players' best players beyond just in front of the net for so many sequences. But I think that there could be certain situations where defensively D-zone draws 6-on-5s where Schenn could bring a bit more than DeMello physically in these specific situations that could lead Arneal to play him with Morrissey. I think Shenn's been good for what he is. I agree with Lyss. Let's not pretend he's the perfect player. Like, there's, like, you know, he's really, really heavy legs. You know, not a great skater, like really heavy legs. He is horrifying to go into a corner against, like really physical, which is great. But foot speed's still not the best. I do think he makes smart plays with the puck, but his timing sometimes isn't the best just because of I think that he has to be in the right situation to make the right play. Like, if he's off balance or a little bit pressured, he's not going to deliver as much. That's fine. Maybe we're being nitpicky, but I think Shenn's been a great ad for what they needed.
And he's like a middle to bottom pairing defenseman, so he's not going to be the perfect ad, right? So no. I agree with kind of the deficiencies there. Like, foot speed could get kind of exposed if it's not the perfect scenario. He has turned the puck over a few times. But my favorite thing about Luke Schenn, and the reason why I've loved this pickup through just 2 games, and I'm excited to see it going forward here, is the fact that he's crushing guys, not putting himself out of position. I mean, I guess I could stop right there. The fact that he's crushing guys, done.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. No, but let me keep going. The fact that he's crushing guys, not chasing hits to put himself out of position, and there's a 2-on-1 behind him. Like, they are calculated, smart, high leverage, good opportunity hits. And there was one in the first period against the Stars. Like, the puck rimmed up the wall. And if you've ever played hockey and you're a winger, like, you just know, like contact hockey, you just know, like, you're going to get crunched. That's what happened. Mikael Granlund was waiting for the puck, and Luke Schenn just came barreling down and absolutely crushed him. And the crowd went nuts. And it was like, the Stars were kind of at the end of a shift. You know, like, there was no chance of them getting anything behind him. So he stepped up and laid a good, clean hit. I don't know, man.
Connor,
what were you gonna say, Jacob?
You mentioned how it's like he's not chasing contact. That's a great point, because a third pairing guy that you want that physicality, you want someone that on routine plays you just mentioned are making guys pay a price, not someone that's chasing a massive open ice hit. Like, you're going to get in trouble doing that.
That's the problem, right? Like, that's
whether
the
it's
whole thing.
A penalty or just 5 guys blowing by you. Like, it's never really.
And it's
really
more often
out.
the latter. And that's the huge problem with whatever you want to put into that category. Hits, blocks, shots, whatever. If you do them at the wrong time, they're not doing what you want them to do, right? Like, that's how hockey works and everything. And I think you're 100% correct that, you know, we can talk about the hit count or whatever. For example, I think that the 7 hits or whatever, it was fascinating because, again, that's more typical of a player stat line for a game where you're chasing the game, which if anyone was near that game, you know for a fact that the Winnipeg Jets are not chasing that game. That's deliberate and that's intentional. And you would have seen the TSN turning points or whatever you want to call them if those hits were poor positional choices that exposed certain players. And we know who's on the Dallas Stars offense. If you do that and all of a sudden Wyatt Johnson's blowing past you, all of a sudden Jason Robertson's blowing past you, you might have to pay on that. So I 100% agree with you. And I really like the fit for that reason.
And to go away from the Friday game just for a second, the Tuesday night game, on your point of like making guys pay for routine plays, there's just a corner play where Arthur Kaliev is just turning and just like chilling, just like very routine play, just turning in the corner. And Luke Schenn crunches him to the point where he's like clean hit. He's like holding his shoulder. He had to go back to New York to be evaluated. Like that's just a routine play. And he like injured the guy, which is like terrible to see the injury. But like, that's how punishing he is. It's like a routine play and he crunches the guy in the corner, clean hit. Nothing's going on behind him. Like, I don't know. The picking his spots thing is my favorite thing about it.
Well, I'll just add, of the 12 hits he's had since joining the Jets, every single one of them's been along the boards.
Yeah.
Like, has he had one open ice hit?
I don't think so.
Because there is an open ice hit in the NHL.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Great. Yeah. Great.
That's good.
Yeah.
Like, that's the way it should be. Like, I just think that it's like way too
board
often.
hits, not open ice. Affectionate.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. So let's keep those hits along the wall. And yeah, Luke Schenn, I think, has been a great fit on the penalty kill as well. I know Samberg and DeMello killed the entire 2 minutes on Friday night, so we didn't see Schenn on the PK, but he was there on Tuesday night against the Rangers, had a few big blocked shots and things like that. So unless there's anything else.
Can I just say something about that penalty kill super quickly, that 2 minute penalty kill?
Let's do it.
I think you want to use the word epitomize for the third time in this episode because Morgan Barron pulled that one out in the media scrum, and I was like, good for you, buddy. If you want to talk about identity, whatever, like 2 minutes of a penalty killing shift against that power play, oh my gosh, nuts. Power play expires, Adam Lowry gets a break, fully thought that guy was about to chip the puck. And Scott Arniel, I'm glad he brought this up. It was really funny that was in the second period, which is the worst time to get a kill like that because of where the benches are, because you're in the opposite zone. So it's really hard to make a change in that capacity. Really easy to make a power play unit change if you want to. But Adam Lowry tracks the puck all the way up, blows past the bench to get the puck in deep there. He didn't just get it over the red line and chip it in, and drove it all the way to the net, got the shot off, and hammered a guy in the corner. And I was like, yes, this is so fun. Like, this is awesome. And I admire a lot of those guys for those exact reasons. It was such a fun kill to watch. And then just to kind of finish it out with not just, if he would have chipped that in, I would have said, good for you. You deserve that. I'm so glad that you did that for yourself, because that was a really long and hard kill for you to put together there. And I just thought that was awesome.
And that was them feeding off of the crowd's energy. The crowd was going nuts because of the penalty kill. And Adam Lowry at the end of a 2 minute penalty killing shift had the energy to go and hit a guy. Like that's all the crowd, in my opinion. And Adam Lowry just being a tank as well. I want to talk about Dylan Samberg. Scores the opening goal. He doesn't have his regular partner in this game. Looks amazing in it. And he actually had a few good offensive chances in this game. Scored on the one. Like I said earlier, incredible crowd pop. Everyone went nuts. Jacob, what have you seen really this year from Dylan Samberg? And, going into a massive game on a Friday night and he puts his stamp on it. Like, I feel like this is just the top of the mountain for the Dylan Samberg success this season, where it's like all year long, we were like, he's a top 4 guy. Is this really a thing? And now it's like, yeah, he's absolutely arrived. Like, he's here. Big game, big goal, big penalty kill. Like, he had such a big impact on that game, Jacob.
Yeah, the conversation's kind of gone from Dylan Samberg's a top 4 guy. Wow, okay, maybe he's a good top 4 guy. Wow, okay, Dylan Samberg's awesome. And now it's Dylan Samberg's a difference maker. Like, when it matters most. And moments like that against Dallas, whether it's at 5-on-5, defending that amazing penalty kill, providing offense, like that goal, like there's just certain things now that, it's more and more evidence that Chevy's probably going to have his hands full in that negotiation, I think, when he gets his new contract. Like, this is a top 4 defenseman that is a difference maker. And I think if he's on any other team, he certainly, or not any other team, I shouldn't say that. A lot of teams in this league, he could be a good player on a top pairing. Certainly.
Yes.
I think, like, for sure. And
he's a number 2.
He's a number two.
He's number 2. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think that, those are hard players to find. And I think it almost seems like every month he's gotten better in something else. Like the first week the first month or two, like he's always been a great defender. That's always been the case, but that was getting even more polished. It's more like palpable, I think, to the naked eye. But then around November, December, his shot was getting through a lot more. Like he was taking a lot of attempts this year, but I think that his shot was hitting the net a lot more. His passes were getting a lot better, his puck movement. And then like throughout the time, his penalty killing has always been great, but I think it's all come together. I think especially when he came back from his injury, I think we all appreciate him even more when he was gone. Like you notice how impactful he's been for this team. What's the stat again? What's the record without
I
him?
got it. I'm ready.
Connor
This
always has
lives
that
in my
one on
brain.
lock. Don't worry.
Yes.
This is like a permanent like thing from you.
I'm getting it tattooed on my arm right here. The Jets are blank with Dylan Samberg. No, they are 35-8-2 when Dylan Samberg starts and finishes a game. So that's not counting the Nashville game where he got hurt and they lost. But yeah, 35-8-2.
So what are they when he doesn't start a game?
Quick math. Go.
Quick math? Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to here. You know what? Give me a second.
He'll do the quick math, and I'll talk about Dylan Samberg for a second
There you go.
because
There
I
you go.
think
You don't have to do
it's
the
so
math.
funny
Someone in the chat will tell us.
that
Let's see.
Connor and I were talking the other day, and we were thinking of doing like a Kieran Walton deep dive because we're like, that's a guy who looks a little bit different than he did last year, kind of thing. And we ended up deciding against it because I'm like, if you want to make good content, you want to be able to talk about specific things and tactical things, whatever. Kieran Walton is just a guy who is 6'6" and is discovering how to play hockey a little bit more confidently and with a little bit more whatever. Like it's a maturity thing. And Dylan Samberg I put into a similar category with that, where when he was starting in his career, like there was a lot of stuff to like, whatever. But the problems, the areas of improvement, whatever, were things that had a lot of potential to improve with time. Like decision making under pressure and that sort of stuff, right? That was where Dylan Samberg struggled a little bit more, and those are areas of the game that with time and reps and all that sort of stuff are bound to get better, especially when your baseline is as strong as his is. So I find that my eyes cling a little bit more to him on the ice now because I'm like, okay, what's the catch, right? That is what I'm thinking right now with Dylan Samberg. That is fully where my brain is at because I'm like watching him play, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is awesome hockey. And like just the passes that he makes within his own zone now, I find are so much more articulate's the wrong word because he's not speaking, he's passing the puck, but they're exactly what he's wanting to do, and they're the right decision to make in those times. From where we sit up there, it's very easy to be like, this is the guy to pass to. You understand that the speed and the angles that you see when you're on the ice are very different, and he's making the right pass a lot of the time. And that was something that he struggled with a little bit earlier in his career. So it's really awesome to see that maturity kind of come into his game.
I want to say one more thing too. I don't know if we've talked about this all, but like Davis Payne obviously gets credit for making this power play amazing. What about Dean Chenoweth, like the defense coach? And I talked to Samberg about this a couple months ago. Actually, let me back up. I talked to Scott Arneal for a feature at Sportsnet and about how, when the Jets hired Chenoweth, someone that used to work in an organization he worked in texted me saying, "Oh, you guys got the D Whisperer." And I remember being like, all right, like, I guess. Like, I don't know. I have known nothing. And the more I dug into it, from what I've learned, this is a guy that has spent a lot of time with guys like Travis Hamonic in his prime, to be clear, in his prime, Jacob Slavin, Rasmus Sandin, Timothy Liljegren in Toronto. And those are different arcs, but he's played a huge role in guys developing from good to elite and also young, raw players becoming regulars. And the reason for that is he gives guys confidence. And like really is a kind of a father figure to the guys. I know players don't really see him much behind the curtain, but that's sort of his reputation with these guys. And Dylan Samberg to me seems like a guy, and I talked to him about Dean like kind of in November. So I don't know how long it was him knowing him, 2 months or whatever. But Dylan Samberg seems like the kind of perfect player that a coach goes, "Hey, I believe in you," or "We need you," for him to go flourish because he has all the ability. Like there was just a couple things he had to work on. So I think that's also an underrated aspect of this as well. And because, I think Samberg's evolution really coincides with not just the natural progression of a player, but where the Jets are and their staff and just kind of where the team is at as well. Like it all kind of ties in.
It's a good point. And I think you want to talk about confidence or whatever. Just last season or whatever, this is a guy who's getting looped into the same conversations as Logan Stanley, Billy Handel, and Declan Chisholm, right? Like that was the category that we were talking about just a year and a half ago in terms of young left-handed defensemen in this organization.
Yeah.
He separated himself pretty well from that, I think, in my opinion, and
No
many.
kidding.
So I think that's a really good point that you bring up, because that is a really important consideration as well.
Yeah, so just to tie the Dylan Samberg discussion, they're 11-9-2 when he was out, and 35-8-2 when he starts and finishes a game. And TSN had a pretty interesting stat when he, they played Nashville a few weeks ago. It was the WST whiskey tasting event night. Shout out to everyone who came to that. But their goals against per game went up like from 2.1 to like 2.7. Their goals for per game like stayed pretty similar. So it's like clearly Dylan Samberg has a massive impact, both at 5-on-5 defense and penalty kill. We all know this. And he's very, very important to this team's success. One other stat that I wanted to bring up here, and this is courtesy of Data Driven Hockey on Instagram. The Winnipeg Jets are the best team in the league against the best teams. Let me explain this. Against the top 16 teams in the league, their points percentage is .667, and that is the number one in the league. I'm pretty sure Washington or someone is second at 650. And then against the worst teams in the league, quote unquote, so against the bottom half of the league, the Jets have a 750 points percentage, which is the fifth best in the league. And this was going into the Dallas game. So that 667 points percentage against the best teams in the league went up after the win against Dallas, of course. But I give that stat to ask you guys the question. A lot of people all year long, the Jets were good last year. What's so different about this year's team? Do you have time for the conversation that this year's team mentally is stronger than last year's team with this one game at a time attitude and this like, yeah, this is a big game. We know it, but we're already on to Sunday. All this talk that you hear after every single game. Like it doesn't matter if they beat the Rangers on a Tuesday night or the Stars on a Friday night, an Eastern Conference team, or literally the team right behind them in the Central. This team is taking it one game at a time, and they're not listening to the outside noise and things of that nature. Do you have time for that argument? Am I making sense? Lyss, do you agree?
No, so I do have time for that argument.
Lyss has time for any argument.
Yeah.
What do you mean? She's not gonna be like,
Good
no.
point. Good point.
Jacob,
Good
guess
point.
what I'm about to say?
Here we go.
I have a theory.
Here we go.
So I have a theory that in the playoffs, you need to have three things, okay? You need to have a baseline of, are you good at hockey? You need to have a baseline of, are you good at hockey? You need to have mental toughness, and you need to have the ability to adapt. Those are the three things I think. And the Winnipeg Jets, I put into the category, I can put down the finger of, I think they are baseline good enough at hockey. I think they have the goaltender, they have the 1A defenseman, they have the top line, they have the depth. I think they have enough of the hard skills, if you want to call it that, of being good at hockey. Last year, the adapting, whatever, got an F for me. That was where they failed, in my opinion. I think the changes, the adaptations, that was where I think they struggled. And then the mental toughness, I got an incomplete on that one. I was at 1.5 out of 3 for this Winnipeg Jets team after last year, because I just wasn't sure. I didn't, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, these guys can't handle it or whatever, the way that some people did. We should cancel the whiteout because the players can't play in this. I'm not there. Don't worry about that. Mm-hmm. But I definitely had an incomplete and some question marks around that. And I do think that there have been some really positives. And I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, but we go back to the Florida back-to-back. We go back to the Toronto Christmas game. Games that we could have circled in the calendar ahead of time, being like, this is probably a big game. Both of these Dallas games, we had those circled long before they happened, long before we could look back at what the result was and be like, yeah, that was a big game. And they came out and they managed a situation that had a little bit more of a stake than a regular season game for whatever XYZ reason. So I had them at like a 0.5 last year in terms of like the hand on the meter or whatever you want to call it is swinging a little bit more towards yes for me right now. Okay. So nice. I agree with you. What does everyone think of my theory?
There you go. Jacob, thoughts?
I agree. I definitely agree. I think that did you phrase it as what they need to be successful in the playoffs, or how did you phrase that? I think
any team, like in order to win, whatever needs those three things to win. Okay. Yes.
I also think that they need a bit of heartbreak as well, having experienced heartbreak. I think that no team, exception of Vegas, who made that cup run, has the last how many years, 10 years, no one's gone from like middle of the pack to Stanley Cup champion. There's so many battle scars that happen in between there. Yeah. And I think, and this isn't a takeaway from Lyss, I'm just adding to it. I think that on top of that, to be serious, I think he got to sort of feel a punch in the gut before.
Well, I think it compounds into that mental like toughness or whatever thing, because you're so right, and I'm going to cut you off and then I'll send it back to you. It's like we look back at these the Colorado Avalanche winning that cup, the Tampa Bay winning those back-to-back, whatever, and that's what we look at now. We forget about the 2-3 years leading up to that. Like Colorado, oh my gosh, they could not get through that second round to save their lives, and it was like a whole thing. And people
Tampa
were like,
got swept.
"Is Nathan?" by the Columbus Blue Jackets,
as like the best team in regular season history.
And those are the things that we forget about, right? And like so, Colorado Avalanche, there was genuinely a narrative of like, is Nathan MacKinnon good enough when, before they won that cup, right? Like we can't forget about that. So I think that that's a really, really important point to bring up.
Right now, the narrative with this team is sort of similar. I think everyone, before that Dallas game, why it was a big game, it was like, okay, how do the Jets look against Dallas post deadline? And I have a complete space for Kyle Connor's narrative of, but whatever, regular season is what it is. And I buy into that. However, I do think it's impressive that, as you guys mentioned, Toronto game, look at the Florida games, how they responded after the Utah game. Every time they've risen to the challenge. And that's what is different for me with this team. I think that throughout the years, we've seen so many different eras of the Jets. We've seen the GST line. I don't know if that's the era, but we've seen like a day where we're all just everyone in the city's so happy that the team's back that we're chanting GST for Glasslater and Thorburn, which is hilarious. We've seen the positive arc up with this core when they were young and the exciting parts of the rebuild. Obviously, the 2017-18 run. And then since then, it's been kind of, for a while there, it was sort of legacy in the sense of like, well, this team was really good at one point. And I think that the last 2 years, to me, it's like, no, this team's really good now. And that's what made last year's exit to Colorado so painful for this team, is because, and I agree with them, they showed that they're a good hockey team. So that's, to me, the kind of the little bit of intangible thing that makes a group go far. And that's why I'm optimistic about this team.
Okay. So my take had some weight to it. And it's really interesting to know that the Jets are the best team in the league against the best teams, or at least against the top 16. That is interesting. In the games we circled on the calendar, like you said, listen, Jacob, they've showed up for. A few things before we get to trending up, trending down, and our burning questions. Matt Hyman brings up, what are your feelings about the McDonald's breakfast bet now?
By the way, shout out Matt Hyman for looking up that stat on what the Jets record is.
11-9.
Matt Hyman's a beauty. That's awesome.
He had the calculator out at 9:30 in the morning. We appreciate it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you? Let's rehash the McDonald's breakfast bet.
I'm cooked. So let me apologize.
You need to apologize. You're just wrong.
Yeah, I'm wrong. So last week I said, and I think the exact quote was, anyone who thinks they're not going to go with Stanley Schenn on the third pairing is coping. I could not have been more wrong. As soon as Schenn came in, Stanley came out, and Pionk even is now hurt, and Stanley's still not in. So I think I'm going to be 1 for 2 on these McDonald's breakfast bets with Jacob. But we'll see.
I'll take a chicken McMuffin.
Oh, here we go.
Two hash browns.
Here we go.
2 hash browns. Yeah, maybe a third, actually. I'll get one for Lyss as well.
Thank you.
And a large iced coffee. Just write that down when you have a chance.
I'll get you back. Oh, yeah. I'll get you back.
The funniest thing with these bets, Connor, is we just keep exchanging McDonald's breakfast. It's like, and at one point we're even. It's like, okay, we bought ourselves breakfast. Like, it's not. We had a different layer to it.
I don't know if anyone remembers the very first McDonald's breakfast of WST Sunday Live was about Kupari getting claimed on waivers.
Yes,
I still kind of like my take. And also, we can't settle that one because he hasn't been placed on waiver. That was a stupid bet. We've learned.
That was dumb. Yeah,
they're better now. They're better now. They actually come to fruition.
In like 5 years, we're going to come back and be like, hey, Kupari's on waivers.
It'd be like, okay, wait, what did I say? What did you say?
Yeah,
like
no idea.
This guy thinks it's going to take 5 years for Kupari to go on waivers.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's coping.
Yeah, there you go. Well, next Sunday, be prepared to apologize just in case, like I did. A lot of the chat was screaming at me when I said that, and you guys were right. I was wrong. And Jacob's going to be 1 McDonald's breakfast richer, at least I think, down the stretch here. So one other thing, or actually 2 other things before we get to our segments that everyone loves. I I want to bring up these Connor Hellebuyck stats. I have the graphic here of his stats against the Western Conference. Now, he was close to another shutout. It got broken with 3 minutes and 49 seconds left in this game against Dallas. Just a tough breakdown in front. Like, everyone was, devastated in the crowd. But here's our good buddy, Dmitry Filipovich, who we wanted to have on the show today, but was unable to work. And we'll try and get him going forward because personally, the Hockey PDO cast is one of my favorites, at least nationally. But here, for our podcast listeners, let me read this graphic out. Connor Hellebuyck against the Western Conference this season. He has 28 starts, 22 wins. The Jets have gotten 46 of 56 possible points in those games. 46 total goals against. He's stopped 93.9% of all shots faced, and he has 6 shutouts against the West. That is simply incredible. And, a lot of what Leon Draisaitl's doing and Nathan McKinnon is doing is getting headlines and Hart Trophy stuff. But if you have a 940 save percentage and 6 shutouts and your 22 wins in 28 games against an entire conference, and just so happens to be the conference that, you're competing with in the playoffs and you're in and against your division, like, that is simply incredible. We've brought up a lot of Connor Hellebuyck stats on this program throughout the year, but this from Dmitry Filipovich on Twitter is probably, one of the better ones for Connor Hellebuyck and his stats against the West. And it'll be interesting to see at the end of the season what those numbers end up as. But I mean, so far so good. Is there anything? Do we have to talk about how good Connor Hellebuyck is?
No, but you know what I was thinking about the other day? I don't think that he or Eric Comrie have gotten yanked at all this year, have they?
Nope.
You're right. Yeah.
And I was like, that's interesting because
that is
good goalies get yanked all the time. Like, we know that teams will break down. Like, it is not a testament of either of their play or anything. It's a team testament to me. It's the whole, goalies are a team stat, not a goalie, or I can't speak. Wins are a team stat, not a goalie stat, or whatever you want to call it. Like, getting pulled is more a reflection of the team than it is of the player. But I think not getting pulled is a really positive indicator of kind of just the consistency we've seen from this group kind of all season. And even though they are breaking down in front of Eric Comrie a little bit, like, I think that it's been a really good year for the Winnipeg Jets goaltenders. It's been lots of fun.
For sure.
Lyss, speaking of not speaking, Connor, what did I turn to and say in the press box the other day?
About
Colorado and Callis.
Oh, yeah. So Jacob was trying to ask me which team I thought the Jets matched up better against if in a potential second round, which is actually, this is a good transition.
I was going to say, we want to talk about this anyway, so.
This is a good transition. But he leaned over and said, would you rather play Dallarado or Collis? Which is just like, what are you even saying? I was like, what are you talking about? So that we laughed about that for a good 10 minutes. But our next topic that I want to talk about is who we want to play or who we would most want the Jets to play or match up best against in the first round. So there are 4 teams. It's a great segue. There are 4 teams that are right around that second wildcard spot if the Jets are able to hold on to that 1 seed. The 4 teams are Calgary, Vancouver, Utah, and St. Louis. Which team do you think the Jets match up the best against? Jacob, I'll start with you. Out of those 4, if you had to pick one. And let us know in the chat below as well.
Match up best?
Yeah.
I don't want to say all of them, but I think I'm going to say St. Louis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Big game Binnington?
No, not really.
Okay.
In this situation. I don't know. I was going to say Calgary, but I could see Calgary. Okay. I could see all those teams stealing a game conceivably. Let me just throw that out there. Actually, I'm going to change my answer. Final answer. I'd say Calgary. I would say Calgary because
Calgary's last for me because of Dustin Wolf. Yes. Dustin Wolf has been incredible this year, and I just feel like he could steal a game or 2.
Yeah. I think, though, with Calgary, I think that a lot of that game will be spent inside Calgary's zone. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, I think that the Jets, when they last played them, the biggest hurdle for the Jets was they didn't make it hard on Wolf enough, and that's fine. Like, that's going to happen, but it's such a high shot volume. Calgary spent no time in the Jet zone that game. At all. They denied them continuously. St. Louis, the reason I kind of hesitated there is they got some burners on the team. Like, some guys I think could make it interesting. I also like St. Louis, weirdly. I like the team. I like what they've done recently. Not the city, just the team.
Just the team.
Lyss doesn't.
Okay.
No, 2019 scarred me. Sorry.
Fair.
Right.
I only
there
could
you go.
start listening to the song Gloria for the first time like this year.
I'm gonna say, I'll say Calgary. What about you guys?
Lyss, who's the best matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can. I'm gonna not answer your question. I think I can probably speak for a lot of us and say that Vancouver is probably the last team that I have on my list. I don't think
Really?
in terms of like I'm just not overly scared of a lot of those teams that are kind of fighting to either fall in or fall out of that second wildcard spot there. But I think Calgary is an interesting one because this is a team that I think the Winnipeg Jets would have to be prepared to play not a 7-6 game against the Colorado Avalanche like last year. Calgary can't score goals. And, but like you said, Dustin Wolf doesn't really give up goals either. So I think it would be a very good structural matchup in terms of like, if you want to win a game with structure, I think that that's a game where you'd be able to do so and kind of let your big guns fly a little bit. I think I like the Calgary matchup. But I'll be honest with you. Did you include Utah on your list of teams that, I think that that's my number one choice. I think that obviously they have some fun. Like, I love Dylan Guenther. Like, don't get me wrong. I think he's a stud and I think he's going to be sick, but like him and what army, right? Like, I think that team has a lot of gaps. And I think that they're also a team that I think there's, you want to talk about the mental toughness or whatever you want to call it. A lot of teams walk into this year like the Winnipeg Jets and say, we're going for this. This is a year we're going to be competitive. This is a team that kind of fell into the playoffs as opposed to a team like the New York Islanders or whatever that maybe you could say was falling out when they wanted to have a bit more of a competitive season. I don't think Utah is prepared or was prepared to kind of compete in this same capacity, the way that the Winnipeg Jets and a lot of those other top teams in the West have. So I think Utah's a team that, like, making it into the playoffs in the middle of this rebuild in this first year in their new city, I think would be awesome and a victory in and of itself. And I just don't know how much compete there would be. Like, guys want to win games. Don't get me wrong. I totally get that. But I think building up for the playoffs all year is different than kind of falling into it in the second half of the season, if that makes sense.
For sure. I agree with you on Utah. Just for the sake of argument, I'm gonna, make the case for Vancouver. There's been a lot of noise around Vancouver this year, and it's giving me a lot of like 2019 Jets vibes where it's like, can they flip the switch come playoff time? Like they have all this talent. They have Quinn Hughes. They have Elias Pettersson, who's heating up now. He's got like 4 goals in his last 5 games. And it's like, can they put it all together come playoff time? Thatcher Demko's not even their starter. They signed Kevin Lankin into a long-term deal. Like it's there's a lot of noise, a lot going on in Vancouver. And I feel like they are maybe a mentally fragile team, like you jump on them early and they'll just like roll over and quit. So
they just have more game changers for me. That's all.
Yeah. But okay,
but they haven't been changing games. So yeah.
They haven't. Exactly. So, and they're in the same conversation as Utah. It's make no mistake, the Jets should beat and or sweep every single one of these teams if they were the 1 seed. It's just we're picking our favorites here in mid-March. It's for the sake of content, but I don't mind the Vancouver pick for the mentally fragile angle and the fact that like Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson, you can make the argument just watching them that they've been playing hurt all year. Like they're just not the same players. I know Quinn Hughes recently has been like in and out of the lineup. Earlier, like prior to the Four Nations break, he was in like the Hart Trophy discussion. Like he is incredible. So that would definitely scare me from that angle. But I don't mind Vancouver and all 4 of these teams the Jets should definitely beat. Let's get to trending up, trending down. This is a segment where we pick players who are trending up or down for the Winnipeg Jets over the past week of play. While you're down in the comments below, dropping your picks for trending up, trending down, make sure you hit the like button. We would really appreciate it. Lets YouTube know we're putting out some great content. Hit that subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss every single time we go live every single Sunday morning. The players, Jacob and Lyss, that we cannot choose this week because we chose them last week are Brandon Tanev, Cole Perfetti, Adam Lowry, Colin Miller, Rasmus Kupari, and Mark Scheifele. Those players are off the board for our trending up, trending down. I'll go first so that I'll go last for the trending down because as we know, we do a snake draft here. So I'll go first here. I'm going to take Luke Schenn. He played 2 games this week. We spoke about him earlier. I love the fact that he's crushing guys and not putting himself out of position. He hasn't made the big mistake, at least in moving the puck yet. And that's a win. The penalty kill impact, I think, is a big one. And I think Tanev was trending up last week after just 1 game. And here we are with Luke Schenn trending up. It's no mistake that these additions are going to have a big impact on this Jets lineup down the stretch into the playoffs. They're playoff style players. They're physical. They'll lay their life on the line for anyone. And yeah, this is a good addition, Luke Schenn. I've loved what I've seen through 2 games, and I'm interested and intrigued about what we're going to see going forward. So Luke Schenn is my trending up after 2 games. I haven't even opened the comments. I know people are saying, oh, it's 2 games a trend, is 1 game a trend. It is for me, Luke Schenn, trending up. Who wants to go second?
I'll take it. Morgan Barron. I think that Morgan Barron is
big goal.
Yeah, great goal.
Yep.
There, hit a stick. I've been a huge fan of Morgan Barron all year, honestly, all his career. I think he brings a lot of value to the Jets. Bringing in Brandon Tanev obviously may have made him seem redundant on the surface. I like the fact they put him at center. His first 2 games, he was really good on draws. The last 2 games, not the best. But last game, he did win a couple really key defensive zone face-off wins.
Yes.
I'm all in on Morgan Barron as a 4C. I love his size and speed down the middle. I think he brings you a lot more than Kupari in that spot. Fits in great with Tanev and Iafallo. So I love what I've seen from Bear.
For sure. And Morgan Barron's getting a lot of love in chat as well. Trending up at center. That move to the middle has been great. Lyss, who you got for trending up? And then you're right back up for trending down as well.
I'm going to give my trending up to Kyle Connor. I think this is a guy that if you want to talk about trends for more than 2 games, no, just kidding. Trending up, trending down is a week. That's how we roll here, and it's fine. But last week we were watching that top line going, what is going on? And Mark Scheifele getting the trending down from us last week was not an isolated thing. It was a little bit more of a indicator of kind of that top line's play a little bit. That's a guy who looked really good to me on Saturday, I think, or Friday, pardon me. I think that Kyle Connor getting a couple goals there was really big. Since the 4 Nations face-off break, I feel like he hasn't looked 100% himself, and not, and then Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes playing through an injury way, and more of a, I think he just needs to kind of get back up to game speed and get some confidence back and whatnot. So I think he looked really good on Friday, so he's going to get my trending up right now. That's a guy I'd like to see scoring 2 goals a game going into the playoffs. For sure. And just last trending up, I know we like to stick to players, but if I had to go off the board, I would say Canada Life Center trending up. Friday night. We said it at the start. Friday night was awesome. Sellout crowd. The crowd knew the stakes of the game, and you could tell that it was tense, and the crowd pop with Dylan Samberg's first goal. It was awesome. So Canada Life Center, not an official pick, but I just want to shout out everyone who's in the building. Trending up, Canada Life Center, the atmosphere in that building. Lyss, you're right back up for trending down. Who do you got? I struggled with this one, trying to come up with someone, and I'm going to pick a bit of a goofy one. I'm going to go with Gabe Vilardi for trending down, just because I think on Friday, Scheifele and Connor, both in their own right, really looked like they kind of stepped up a little bit. And Gabe Vilardi, I think, just took maybe only a half step as opposed to the full step that they did. I don't think he looked bad per se, but I think if he was like dialed to the capacity that we know that he can, that line would have scored 4 more goals in that game. Like, I think he's a guy who still needs to take a little bit of another step, even on the power play in particular. I feel like the greasiness of those hands hasn't been at the same level as it was a little bit earlier in the season. So he's going to get my trending down, but again, same as before, brackets affectionate, because I don't think that this is necessarily, brutal by any means. But I was going through that line chart in my head, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think Dylan DeMello had an awesome game on Friday. I think, Mason Appleton, I've been having some fun with. Like, lots of guys, I think, have. Hey, we can unpack that one some other time. But, some guys that I feel like
we might unpack it in a few minutes, actually.
Go to. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I think that this is a team that's playing pretty decent hockey right now. So it wasn't an easy pick for me, but Gabe Vilardi gets my choice for this week.
It's tough. And, the Jets are the number 1 team in the league. It feels like we go through this every Sunday. We have to pick players that are trending down. It's really tough. Okay. When they beat the Dallas Stars to go up 10 points in the West, it's tough to pick who's not
trending down the Dallas Stars, bro. Like, what the heck?
Boom, yeah. I mean, I guess we could start doing that if you want, but
that's lazy.
Jacob. Yeah, true. Yeah. We want the slander. Jacob, who do you got trending down?
I'm going to say Nikolai Ehlers. I don't know how popular that'll be, but I just, like, in a game like Dallas, the Dallas game, Lyss, you made a point about how like Ehlers kind of thrives in games that aren't as structured, and he kind of brings his team into the fight. Like the playoffs don't work that way, and that's kind of, to me, a part of the reason his success hasn't been there in the postseason. To me, the decision making is so questionable in some of these games. And I don't get it. Like, I don't get people defend Ehlers like at length for everything. And like, I get it. He's got unbelievable speed. I love all his tools, but like this guy will, I don't get it. Like the some of the drop passes, some of the weaving in the neutral zone, all these things, it just doesn't work against a team like Dallas. It won't work against Colorado. And that's all I'm going to say. I don't want to get too into it, but that's where my mind goes to when I see what was not the best game against New York. And
Sure,
the line's been better. I'm going to be very clear here. Second line's been a lot better, and Ehlers a huge part of it. But I think in a game against Dallas, you would have liked to see him be a game changer there, or be an impact player at 5-on-5.
I totally agree that the line's been better. I feel like Vlad Nemestikov has been kind of our like scapegoat trending down player for a lot of the season, and like doesn't deserve it at all in the last stretch, in my opinion.
He's been much better, especially since the Four Nations break. And I mean, the couple of games here since the trade deadline as well, or the 1 week since the trade deadline. I'm going to go Mason Appleton. Lyss, we can get into it. He went pointless this week, and that line offensively hasn't been, that great. Adam Lowry had like a 3-game goal streak last week, and he was getting some nice plays. And I know that line's identity in a game like the Stars game is just to play great defense and cycle the puck down low. And that's what Mason Appleton's really good at. But I'm going to take Appleton. He has no goals in his last, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games. He has 1 assist over that time too. So it's just not enough production from a line that plays as much as the Lowry line does, because we mentioned them as the third line, but it's really 2A, 2B with the Ehlers line as well. So Mason Appleton, I'm going to say trending down, and I could see going forward down the stretch here. I think there's like 15 games left. Maybe a Brandon Tanev on Adam Lowry's wing, maybe an Alex Iafallo on Adam Lowry's wing. They have options in that bottom 6 for sure. So I'm going to go Mason Appleton. The chat is on Logan Stanley. I mean, that's a fine pick. He was on my list because he's not in the lineup. So it's just like a natural trending down, kind of like the Rasmus Kapari last week.
That was even worse because he was concussed.
Yeah, that was worse because he was hurt, but like that's just a natural trending down. Sure. I had a few other ones as well, but we'll stick with that. That was trending up, trending down. Thank you everyone for taking part in the comment section. Make sure you hit the like button while you're down there. Hit that subscribe and the notification bell. We really appreciate it. Do we want to hop right into one burning question? Let's do it. Let's do it. This is now one burning question. So if you're in the chat, don't go anywhere. We want questions. We want questions and we want to answer them. So drop your question down below. We're going to attempt to rapid fire through these questions. We always end the show with kind of a one burning question segment here. So drop your questions down below. And like I said, while you're down there, hit that like button, hit the subscribe. And I will ask you two, my one burning question to you both is, did you know, we don't hear it that often, but Dylan Samberg's goal song is elite. Let's Go Crazy, Prince. He's from Minnesota. Like, that is an elite goal song. And
first of all, you must know that I know every goal. There's no, did you know this person's goal song? Of course I do. Of course I do.
No,
I know.
Did you know it was that elite? Did you know
I haven't heard it in Canada Life Center yet this year.
Right.
So, you know what? That's a good point. And it's a good one. It's a good one. And I love the Minnesota connection. I think that's so fun. I love the goal song so much. But thank you for teeing me up. Jets fans, you got to do a better job of actually singing these goal songs. They're awesome. They're so good. Like, Hell Yeah by Rev Theory, great goal song. And we got to actually start singing it out there. So come on, guys. Let's pick it up a little bit.
A lot of opportunities with Kyle Connor. You know, Kyle Connor scoring a lot of goals.
He do be scoring.
So
what's Brandon Tanev's goal song?
We don't know.
I don't think we know yet. They didn't announce it.
We have to wait. We went through this last year too with Toffoli and Monahan. They don't announce it, and then they score, and it's like, okay, this is what their goal song is.
Tyler Toffoli's was Uproar by Lil Wayne. I remember that because that was awesome.
Sean Monahan's was Humble by Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah,
so those were the two last year.
So
anyways, let's get to some burning questions. Kim asking, will Luke Schenn be paired with Josh Morrissey? This is something we saw kind of late in the game against Dallas. Could you guys, I don't think he'll be paired with Josh Morrissey for a full game, but could you guys see it situationally? Like protecting
Situationally,
that lead
yes.
down the stretch?
I do not
Nice.
think that when the Winnipeg Jets control matchups and have all of their bodies healthy that we will see that pairing, but I think we could see it if the situation dictates some movement from players.
Yeah, D-zone
Sure.
draws, I would say.
Yeah.
For sure. Burning question here from Kenny's water bottle. The Hart Trophy goes to the NHL MVP based on a vote by the PHWA, while winners of the Lindsay Award is selected by the NHLPA. Will Helly be nominated / win either one? Jacob, thoughts? Hellebuyck, Lindsay, Hart.
I think he will be nominated. So the Ted Lindsay, there's 3 people selected by the players, right?
I was going to
so.
ask, I don't know how that one works. Like, obviously, the Hart, we know it's the 3 nominees that we see, and then the winner is the Ted Lindsay.
It might just be one.
It might
Ted
just
Lindsay
be
might
one.
So
one
I know
guy
that
out of
the
them.
Hart, I'm pretty sure we would all, like the PHWA would all vote, and then of the voting that they would count, there's a point system, and the 3 highest point getters would be named finalists, and they reveal the
Correct.
winner at the end. The Ted Lindsay, I don't know. I think it's probably a similar process, except the votes are the players. I would say Hellebuyck will be nominated for both, and I don't know. I think he'll win the Hart.
Okay.
I could see the narrative appealing to enough people.
I don't know. I think it's going to be Draisaitl. He just has so many goals.
Yeah,
and
probably Draisaitl.
I think Kelly has, though, kind of cemented himself as a lock for a nomination at this point. I know
For
a lot
sure.
of people are
I would agree.
sitting on the fence about the
I
underdog
would
story.
agree.
No, I think he's getting enough. There's enough smoke, noise, whatever you want to call it around that. I think he gets a nomination for sure. Ted Lindsay, though, I hadn't thought enough about that one. That's an interesting one. Could see that. You know how players love their goalies. You know that. So
Exactly. Because players love commenting on goalies because it's like, oh, we played great, but the other goalie was just better. And that's just, it wasn't our fault. It was the other goalies. Anyways, Corey May, is winning one playoff round enough? I'll say that not winning a playoff round would be unacceptable at this stage of the year. But I don't know. It depends. Like if they lose in 7 to the Stars, like, I don't know. That's like, tough series. If you lose in 4 to the Stars in the second round, yeah, that's a disappointment. What do you guys think on this? What are the expectations going into the playoffs? 2 playoff round wins? 1?
yeah, I think I would be pleased with a conference final appearance from this team. Like, I think it's hard, though, because this is not, like I've said this before, this is not the Ottawa Senators or New Jersey Devils here. This is not a team that's like awesome. Their best hockey is yet to come. This is a team that, if let's get the ball rolling here. If we want to win a Stanley Cup with this group, I'd like to see it pretty soon because being on the wrong side of 30 is not ideal for a Stanley Cup winning core. So, enough. I don't know. Incomplete answer, I guess. I'm gonna say no, though. I'm gonna say no. I need more from this group.
Yep.
I'd
You
say
agree, Jacob?
probably no.
Yeah,
I'd say probably no.
I would.
But
say that too.
I agree with you, Connor, that if they lose Game 7 of the Stars, like
Well, it's like the Edmonton Oilers last year. It's you're 1 goal away from winning a
Right.
Stanley Cup. Like
it really depends. It really does depend. But to answer the question, I'll agree with you both and say no. Rat River Rebel, are the Jets better without Neil Pionk? No, absolutely not. Neil
I say
Pionk
no.
and Dylan Samberg have been a great second pair all year. Luke Schenn's been great, but yeah, I'm gonna say no. Who's coming back in the lineup first? Hainel or Stanley? I think this is Logan Stanley for sure.
Stanley.
I don't think the Ville Heinola experiment is going to get fired up anytime soon.
No.
I'll
buy everyone in the chat at McDonald's breakfast if Billy Hanel plays another game for the night.
What?
Keep your receipts.
Well, everyone clip it.
Yeah.
Well, we've got 301 people watching with us right now on
Hey.
YouTube list. So that is I don't know, do math 300 times.
That's
like
a lot of
8.
McDonald's breakfast. I'm sorry, guys. I'll call Huss. I'll expense it. It's fine.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Makes
By the
sense.
way, this is easily our biggest crowd, 300 people. Thank you so much, everyone. I know a big win on Friday night. Everyone's fired up, but we really appreciate you spending your Sunday mornings here with us live on WST Sunday. We do these segments every week. It's a ton of fun. You should join us every single Sunday. That would be incredible. AJ asks, of the UFAs, who will not be extended? Now, this is interesting because earlier this week, Ken Wiebe of the Winnipeg Free Press reported that Alex Iafallo wants to re-sign in Winnipeg, which is interesting. I mean, a lot of people just kind of wrote him off as like gone, I don't know. Answer the question though. What do you guys think of the UFAs who will not be extended? I just wanted to throw that IFL nugget in there because usually he's the answer.
Ehlers is the answer, and I think everyone else, I could see it. I could see everyone else
coming back or leaving.
Coming
You
back.
can see everyone else coming back. And
Like
Ehlers
I
leaving.
saw another burning question in the chat about like the whole IFLO Appleton, if those impact one another. I think the Jets find a way to keep them both. I really do. Like I think that those are two guys that are willing to sit down and have that long conversation with the Winnipeg Jets to stick around. I did not have Alex Iafallo in that camp before Ken Weave's piece earlier this week, but hey, nice to hear and whatnot. But I think Mason Appleton's a guy that, I think he enjoys being here. If you've spent any time around kind of the team at practices and stuff like that, he's a ball of energy on the ice. He's so much fun, and like I think he really enjoys this group. So I think he works to make it work as well.
I agree. Ben Howard, Jacob, I'll direct this question to you. What's the AAV on term on the next Samberg contract? This is a tough one. We're not agents. This is not our job, but we are media people. We love to speculate. Let's do it.
I'm gonna say 8 years.
Nice. 8 years blank check.
$6 million.
$6 million. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that'd be a deal. If the Jets got that, I would come on WST Sunday Live and say that's a great contract.
What do you think?
6.5, 7, maybe. Maybe not 7. That's a little high for a guy that, Murat Atesh and The Athletic had a great piece on like UFAs, RFAs, and mentioned how like GMs usually pay for points and time on ice and things like that. Samberg gets the time on ice and the penalty killing and the defense, but like he doesn't have the points. I mean, he had the big goal against Dallas. I don't know. I could see anywhere from 6 to 7 for 8 years.
I think if they get him at an 8, that's a win. I think the difference between $1 million and AAV is kind of negligible for me. I think that's awesome. So I would lean towards, I think 6 is probably more likely. I think he could fight for 6.5 or 7 for sure. I don't know. I'll go with the 8x6 as well.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I'd love that deal, especially with the cap rising. Oof,
exactly.
That would be money. Matt Hyman O'Connor go crazy in Vancouver. It's like my whole day's ahead of me here. It's 8:12, guys. This is great.
That's massive.
I'm in the Western time zone. Waking up at 6 when it's like pitch dark is a lot tougher when you didn't just be in the central time zone. So I'm not letting my body adjust to this time zone because this is the worst time zone for sports. I've said it when I've been the West Coast before. I'll say it again. Like I was watching the Canucks game on the TV and it was done by 9:15 and that was it for sports for the night. It was like, what are we doing here? It's terrible.
Central is goated. I'm telling you.
Yes. I landed and got in the hotel, turned on the TV, and it was like Vegas versus Buffalo. And it was like middle of the second period. I was like, oh, this must be a replay because it's like 10:30 in the morning. Nope. Middle of the second period. There's a game going on at 10:30 in the morning. Like it's, I'm sorry. It's ridiculous. I don't want to watch hockey at 10 in the morning. I mean, I do. And I did, but I don't, I'd rather watch it late at night. Can Stanley possibly resurrect himself by learning and modeling his game from Luke Schenn?
Interesting question. I think, listen, I cannot abandon my stance on everything, which is that the more reps you get of anything, the more you watch of anything, the better that everyone will get. I don't care what the baseline is. I think if he were to deliberately make the choice to watch this and execute, should he find himself in another game situation, I absolutely think that he could improve. I just don't know that it's going to be enough of a difference. I don't know if it would actually be a substantial difference. Mm-hmm. And I also think that, to my earlier points that I've been saying for years about Logan Stanley, he's not a Luke Schenn. He is a better puck mover than Luke Schenn is. Like there are certain things about him that he should be better at than Luke Schenn.
I think Luke Schenn is more simple with his puck movements, It's
Logan
not
Stanley has more offensive upside than Luke Schenn does. If that's a better way to phrase it or something. If you want to, like, there's some different, like they're not the same player. Luke Schenn, like it's more in terms of like what I think is there for the player. Because we've been saying this for years that he's not some brutal enforcer or whatever. Like he's a guy who he's a high shot volume,
better hands than Schenn. I'll give him that.
Yeah. So like I think that there are some differences in the player, but I do think in terms of like the intelligence and poise and the when to go for hits and all that sort of stuff, watching the decision making from the player, I think could do him some good for sure. I think that's a fair point.
Okay. Yeah, and it's worth noting as well, Luke Schenn is under contract next season as well, at 2.75. So is Colin Miller. Neil Pionk's a UFA as well. Presumably the Jets are going to want to bring him back. Dylan Samberg's an RFA. Morrissey's under contract. DeMel's under contract. So the Jets' blue line's pretty crowded going into next season, assuming that Pionk is back and Samberg is back as well. Will Comrie play 5 more games? What do the Jets have? 16 games left? 15 games left? I don't know.
Should.
Let's do this road trip. Do you think he plays like today against Seattle or against Vancouver or against Edmonton?
I think he plays today.
You think he plays today?
I think so.
Probably today. And then that's it.
Okay.
So that's
yeah.
3 games. How many games are left? Sorry, 15?
Let me
I
see.
think so. Yeah.
I was just throwing that number out there.
I think it was game 67 on Friday. So
He should play more than 5.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Yeah.
the idea that, I mean, I don't know. I have a hard time with the idea of him playing just like 3 or 4 games with this much time left.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not saying disrupt Hellebuyck's rhythm entirely. I'm just saying that it shouldn't be overworked by any means now. Because 70% is not normal in the NHL.
Yeah. Kenny's water bottle saying Eastern time zone is the worst for sports watching. I'm here for both, honestly. I'm here for the argument that both are terrible. Because forget watching a West Coast game. A Central Division game ends at 11:30, like he mentioned. So a West Coast game will start at like 10:30 in the Eastern time zone, or even later, which is just ridiculous. Oh, we lost Jacob. Jacob didn't. You know what? He doesn't like any time zone, so he just had to leave. And hated that discussion. That's going to do it for one burning question. Lyss, I do want to get your thoughts on the road trip. So if you could stick around, that would be great. Back already, but that was one burning question. Thank you everyone for participating, asking some great questions today. We really appreciate it. Here's Jacob. He's back.
I was so mad at what you guys were saying. I had to leave.
His Toronto bias is showing.
Yeah, this is the fact that you're picking this time zone makes me so angry. But all right, continue.
Yeah, Toronto bias. I like that. Anyways, what are you guys expecting on this 3-game road trip, and most notably today against the Seattle Kraken? I know these games are much less important than the one Friday night in terms of like the opponent. But what are you expecting from the Jets? Lyss, I'll start with you.
Yeah, my thing is against teams that are maybe a little bit lower in the standings or whatever. It's always use that as an opportunity to get some other guys going. Whether it be, I was talking about how Gabe Vilardi maybe needs to step up a little bit. He's had some really fun plays against Seattle in the past. I have that in my highlight package. So maybe getting him rolling would be really awesome. Getting Mason Appleton and Brandon Tanev, maybe those bottom 6 guys to finish a little bit on some of their chances to get their confidence going and point totals a bit juiced up as well. A couple things like that I think would be a really good use of a game like this. I don't really have a whole ton to say kind of about the Seattle Kraken. I think this is a wacky team. And I think that this game is kind of, all things considered, for seeing what the Winnipeg Jets schedule looks like for the last stretch of the season, one of the more quote unquote unimportant ones. But hey, the thing with the unimportant ones on the other side of that coin, that's another chance to, cut this, not cut this lead, but secure this lead even more, get up by 12 points on Dallas, right? And I think, we spent a lot of time today talking about whether, it would be better for the Jets to play Calgary or Vancouver, whatever. The number one thing, first and foremost, is just keep that first spot in the Central. That is so important. Is to not play Colorado or Dallas, and that's it. And that 2-3 matchup there. Holy smokes. Controlling the matchups all the way through would be awesome for the Winnipeg Jets. So that first place is important. So every win has its stakes in the same way that it does for teams that are battling for a playoff spot. Just it looks a bit different. So a couple, it would be great to see a 7-0 blowout against the Seattle Kraken today. That's what I'll go with. Hot take.
Well, yeah, very hot take. We got a lot of knowledgeable people in chat because they are sharing my thoughts on today's game. Choices TK, prime letdown spot today coming off the big end. I'm not saying the Jets are going to lose, but what you see a lot in other sports, the NFL, whatever, the NFL specifically, is a team will have this big emotional win on prime time on Monday Night Football, and then they'll travel and play like the Carolina Panthers on the road on Sunday at noon, and they'll lose
like 27-25.
Yeah, and we'll be like, how did that happen? It's because they have the big prime time emotional win, and then they go and they play this team that no one really cares about on the road. Very, very, you're not into it as much. I could totally see today just being like a regular season trap game against a team like Seattle that can take advantage off the rush and things like that. I will say the last time the Jets played the Kraken, they dominated them. Joey Decord was all over the Jets, and it took Dylan DeMello scoring in his 600th game with like 20 seconds left to get the win for the Jets. But that game should have been over a lot earlier. So I don't know. I could see a trap game today, and a lot of people in chat are saying that as well. Jacob, what are you expecting today's game and the road trip real quick?
Yeah, I see the trap game as well. I kind of think that Seattle's if I were to say who I'm leaning towards to be for sure Seattle, I think that's a big emotional game. It's hard to follow it up, kind of like you said. And the road trip, I'm excited to see how Winnipeg looks against Vancouver. I'm just curious. I'm curious mainly because like Vancouver season's on the line right now. Yeah, Pedersen's playing a little bit better recently. I just want to see what they're really made of, if they're a surprise team that could get hot down the stretch. And the Oilers as well. They're struggling a little bit too this season. Seems to be out of whack in the Stanley Cup hangover. Stanley Cup finalist hangover. And yeah, I think I go back to whoever said that question about Comrie. I wonder if we see him play more than that amount of games, more than 5 down the stretch here. I don't know.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. For sure. Before we go, do you guys have any work coming out soon? Lyss, Chell Chit Chat, new one coming soon. Jacob, sportsnet.ca, any articles? Plug whatever you guys got coming out on the way out today. Lyss, you go first.
Yeah, I have a new episode dropping on Wednesday for Chell Chit Chat, episode 8 of 10. So season's almost wrapping up. But if you haven't checked it out yet, I recommend you do so. I have had a lot of really fun conversations with some very, very cool women in hockey. And this week is a very, very interesting one as well. Someone with kind of a more off-the-board involvement in hockey that I think is really, really cool. So it's going to be really fun. So definitely check that out on all your pod platforms and everything.
Nice. Looking forward to that for sure. Jacob, sportsnet.ca, what do you got cooking?
I got a column later today. It's things we know and things we think we know about the Jets with 15 games remaining. So check that out on .ca. And then, yeah, usually after every game, I got something about the Jets cooking. And that's the place to be, sportsnet.ca.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. And I'll pump my own tires a little bit here. I'm in Vancouver. I'm going to have coverage from the morning skate on Tuesday and the game on Tuesday. It's my first ever road game that I'm going to be covering for the Jets. So I'm super fired up for that. And like Dallas asked here, I will be back next Thursday for our BP watch party with the Jets and Oilers game at BP Garden City. So if you want to show up, I'll be there. Huss will be there. Remus will be there. I don't know about you two, what you guys are up to that Thursday night, but you're working. Obviously welcome. Work. True. Good point.
About the game.
I'm working too. I mean, watching the game with
having
all my
a little brown jug
friends
is working. So
yeah. Exactly. Got to support the sponsors for sure. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this week of games. The West Coast road trips are always fun in my opinion. So that's going to do it for us on WST Sunday Live. On the way out, make sure you hit the like button, hit that subscribe, the notification bell so you don't miss every time we go live every single Sunday morning. Enjoy the game today, and we'll see you all next Sunday. Have a great week, everyone. Peace.